From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Well, hello and welcome to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, joined by Tom Campbell, our Chief Creative Officer. That's right. And James St. James. And Blake Jacobs. And you know what? This is our 250th episode.
Unbelievable.
Can I interrupt? For that occasion, I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I'm going to put on a new hat. Okay.
I love that.
Oh my God. I'm gobsmacked by that. It feels like yesterday. Do you remember the first episode?
It's been a runaway success, James.
We were in the basement of World of Wonder, but we were like in the stacks, right? We were back.
No, actually, the first episode, we were off in one of those little side rooms. To the side, we were doing like practice runs. Remember the conference rooms?
Right.
Oh.
I love that you have trouble remembering the word conference room because it's been so long since you've been in the office.
I don't ever remember having practice runs.
We had 2 or 3 practice runs, I think.
I thought we were still practicing.
We are every week.
10, 9, 8, 6, 4. Okay, that's what we do every week. We count down the top 10 things that made us go, wow. That is a quick thing I want to say. Congratulations, Macaulay Culkin and Brenda Song on the birth of their beautiful baby boy, Dakota.
Very happy for them. It's really wonderful. I'm so happy for Macaulay, who is a grown man now, isn't he? It's very strange.
With child, yeah.
40 years old, I think.
Always a child star, though. Always a genius.
Well, and a little pop trivia. Brenda Song used to date Trey Cyrus, Miley's brother.
I did not know.
Amazing. All right. What have we got? What's going on this week?
Number 10, Fenton.
Oh, thank you. Yes. It's okay. This is just a rehearsal. It's not real.
Number 10.
Colton Underwood came out on Good Morning America Wednesday morning to Robin Roberts in one of the most canned, rehearsed things. Hold on, James. I want you to have your moment because I want to be, listen, we've talked about this in different formations before, and I want you to go for it. Andy Cohen, our radio boss, a lot of people have reached out to him through, and supported him. Simultaneously to him coming out, he was the Bachelor. He was like a suitor, then he was the Bachelor. He was the Virgin
NFL star. He was an NFL star before the Bachelor as well.
And he's 29, and he's coming out. And you come out when you come out. But it was such a canned, emotional coming out with Robin Roberts, who held his hand and basically asked him all the questions he forgot to say himself. And then it's released hours later, minutes later.
What a surprise!
That he has a Netflix series that's in production where he's going to learn how to be gay with his his gay guide, Gus Kenworthy, who we love. Gus Kenworthy. We're friends with Gus Kenworthy. But why does the whole thing make me want to go ick?
Okay, I'm going to be the bitch here. I knew it was going to be up to me to be the bitch because you were going to try and soft pedal this. But the fact of the matter is, God bless Colton Underwood. Like you said, when you come out is when you come out. But the manipulative, cynical aspect that that Netflix and Good Morning America were in cahoots together, deciding who got to say it first and who was you get an hour before we get to mention it, blah, blah, blah. And the whole idea that he is doing this I'm new to being gay thing with Gus Kenworthy, and the idea that Gus Kenworthy is a gay guy. If Gus Kenworthy can name 3 Liza Minnelli movies that aren't Cabaret, I'll let him be a gay guide. But if he can't, then he is a gay bee himself, and the whole thing makes me so mad.
What would if we were the gay guides, if we were the ghosts of Christmas gays, past, present, and future, how would we school Colton? What would we do?
Well, you'd start with Anti-Mame, and then Sunset Boulevard, then whatever happened to Baby Jane, and then you take him to the baths, and then you take him to Vaseline Alley, and then
I do think if this Netflix show was to be good, James St. James would be his gay guide, and it would be a whole different show, and I would watch that.
Tell him stories about the anvil and the mine shaft.
But the other thing during the interview, which again, it was just point by point perfect, but just so canned. And what also why ABC is doing the interview and why Robin Roberts is helping him through it is he also is a big part. He was part of 3 seasons of The Bachelor. So they are protecting their franchise. They're making sure that the women don't feel alienated, that they were falling in love with. But the only part that makes me pause, James, is was there ever a time when you dated girls and didn't tell them you were gay because you weren't ready and did you ever have that moment?
I can answer that question.
Yes.
No,
there was a girl that I was maybe kind of, sort of, maybe thinking about being bisexual, maybe sort of, kind of. And we still made out and went out and everything. But my whole problem with it stems from I had a tweet today in which I said this is peak caucasity. It is mayonnaise leading mayonnaise into a mayonnaise covered world, and it is the fact that it's we're in this period now post last summer when Hollywood was supposed to get the message that we need diversity, and to have these pretty white bland boys, it's not needed. It's not something that anybody is asking for. Nobody is clamoring to see pretty white boys come out of the closet. I think it's time to tell other LGBTQ stories.
And I've never been a fan of The Bachelor. I know it's hugely successful. There are people I know and love who watch it, and it taps into something, but I find it so false to begin with. So the fact that this guy, all of his brooding and jumping fences, and again, I don't really follow the story, but all of the drama that was created by him in his love, it could have been because he was in the closet, but I just think it just speaks to the fakery of the whole thing.
Let's be honest, none of these relationships ever last longer than 2 months anyway. So
I took one look at him and I thought, well, of course he's gay. How did anyone ever think otherwise? He
was a virgin till he was 29, and I'm sorry that you can cut that out if you want to. Well, that's a big red flag right there.
A virgin like Bill Clinton didn't have sex with that woman.
Well, didn't inhale or whatever.
He did butt things, but it wasn't really sex.
Exactly. There you go. All right. Well, good luck to Colton Underwood. I think you got a great last name for being a gay, a gay, and we probably won't be watching, but good luck with it. All right, let's move on to number 9. What made you go wow, James?
Number 9.
I watched Thunder Force on Netflix, the superhero movie starring Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer.
Now, and because our building manager downstairs absolutely loved it, but all the boomers on NPR absolutely hated it and said, quit making movies with your husband, Melissa McCarthy.
No. I'll tell you what. I love Melissa McCarthy movies. I think they're absolutely hysterical. I think a bad Melissa McCarthy movie is better than any good television on TV today. I could sink into them and watch any one of them. This one is especially interesting because, it's a superhero movie, and it stars 2 middle-aged, plus-sized women. One of them is a middle-aged plus-sized woman of color, which you do not see. At no point are they ever not as kick-ass or badass as a young male superhero. They are in their little spandex costumes, and it never at one point is that a source of a joke or anything. It's like, of course, the minute Jason Bateman sees Melissa McCarthy, he's smitten. She's in her, costume. It's really refreshing to see all of that, and it's really nice. They're very weird, these movies. Melissa, sometimes it seems like she's just riffing, like she's just making things up as she goes along. And I don't know if that's the sign of a good actress or if she really is riffing. But at one point in time, Fenton, she breaks into this Nell, this Jodie Foster Nell impersonation, like a tie in the wind.
Hey,
A
Wing.
tie in the wind. And
Hey,
nobody has
Wing.
done a Nell joke in 25 years. I don't know who she thought her audience is.
I do a Nell joke about once a month, just so you know.
I feel like we quoted that all the time, James. Did we not?
Well, we do, but we aren't exactly 20-something years old anymore.
And
But
no
and
one's
the other
listening.
thing is, there's Jason Bateman plays a supervillain who has crab claws for hands. That's like his supervillain.
That sounds good. That
It's
sounds
hot, it's
reasonable.
really hot. And at one point, Melissa McCarthy and Jason Bateman are falling into bed and they're about to have hot sex. And she just brings out a stick of butter and starts buttering his arms and sprinkling garlic salt on it. And he's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I like my crab claws." And it's like that's like never is like just these weird little things. Anyway, I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought they were both really great.
That was our cannibal Easter egg for this episode.
Yeah.
So
But
it's a parody of action movies. I just want to make sure I'm following. Okay.
It is. Well, no, but actually they take it very seriously. I mean, she becomes super strong. Her friend Octavia Spencer, the world is full of super villains, and so there's never been a superhero before, and they're the first superhero team. And there is one scene where they have a purple Lamborghini that's their car, and they're struggling to get in and out. And I could have done without that because it's sort of like a weight joke. But other than that, it's refreshing just to see these two women at the peak of their powers. You know,
I would watch it if just to see Bobby Cannavale. Isn't he in it?
Bobby he's so gorgeous. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, who doesn't speak to me anymore, but she used to be a friend of mine, was married to him and has a child by him. And I think she stopped speaking to me when she started dating him because she knew I would be all over him.
Well, I just saw Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer on the Graham Norton show, the episode with Michelle Visage. So
Really?
yeah.
Oh, see, it all comes together.
A lovely full circle moment. Thunder Force is streaming on Netflix. 10-9. Number 8.
Number 8.
Went on a road trip with the kids.
Wow.
Elliot
I'm
and
excited to
Nolan
hear about this.
got in a car and drove. It was Billy's idea, and we drove to Scottsdale.
Did you take a Tesla?
No, took a regular old car because we're worried about wouldn't find any.
That's what I was wondering.
Scottsdale isn't that near where the grandparents are, or no?
It's in Arizona.
Okay, yeah.
It's in Phoenix. I mean, it's part of Phoenix. And then the next day we drove to the Meteor crater, and it's near Winslow. The Meteor crater, 50,000 years ago, a meteor just streaked out of the sky and landed and created this enormous crater. It's like 3/4 of a mile around. It's something like 60 stories deep. You can't actually go into it. You just sort of look at it. But it's just massive and it's completely flat. And, 150-foot high walls around this. I mean, it's an extraordinary moment of like, oh my God.
You know what? That same night, James St. James was at the pyramid and felt nothing. Just so you know.
But what happened to the Earth upon impact? Was there some sort of catastrophic event?
Well, thereby hangs the tide. No, it was huge. Well, it's 50,000 years ago, so even you weren't around then. But it immediately vaporized, like it was an iron meteor, and it immediately vaporized and sent out stuff everywhere. Then we went on from the meteor to, well, actually, before I go off from the meteor, it actually wasn't really noticed until 1871.
What?
When this guy, Franklin, who was a scout for General Custer, he found it. And you know what they called it? They called it Franklin's Hole. It was a little bit on point.
I thought it might have been discovered when that one guy sang that song about standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona.
Well, that's the famous Eagles song, of course. And there's a statue on the corner of Winslow. There is, and I saw it. But why am I telling a story about a meteor? It was just such an epic moment. And then the founder of Standard Oil, he was convinced the meteor would be underneath, that it impacted. What he didn't realize, and he spent 26 years searching for this meteor. Well, the thing vaporized, and so there was no meteor to be found.
Well, now we know.
Now you know. And then from there, we went on to the Painted Desert. And
I've never been there. Tell me about that.
Oh my God. Whether it's this media crater, the Painted Desert, or the Petrified Forest, or the Grand Canyon, all of which points we hit.
Wait, I thought the Petrified Forest was the Painted Forest.
The Painted Desert. Well, the Painted Desert is sort of there, and the Petrified Forest is next to it. And this
Why
is
is it petrified?
My only knowledge of the Petrified Forest is from Beavis and Butthead Over America. They stopped there.
Well, right. I mean, this is Badlands, but of course, in the late Triassic era, which is like 250 million years ago, and we're talking about the dawn of the dinosaurs. We're talking before Jurassic Park. In fact, I have a little bit of Petrified Forest right here.
They let you walk out with that, or
you can buy them at the gift shop. And do you know how a Petrified Forest gets formed?
That's what I asked.
Well, I'll just tell you. The tree falls down and it gets waterlogged, and the wood absorbs sand and water. And then I think it gets crushed under sediment. And eventually the sand crystallizes into quartz. Isn't that fascinating? And it's colored by the different minerals. I tell you, it is so trippy. It is. You are walking around the Petrified Forest, and there are just petrified trees just lying on the ground, huge trunks, and they're 250 effing million years old. It's sort of mind-blowing, the whole thing. I mean, the Grand Canyon is itself mind-blowing. You can't really
go to the Grand Canyon, right?
Yes. And you can't really photograph it because it's so massive. And
it doesn't work in photographs, does it? You think you're getting a great photo, but you
do not. And then last stop was Sedona, which is so beautiful. It's these towering mazes of red, sort of crumbly rock.
Did you hear the Sedona hum?
What is that?
It's a hum that only 1/8 of the people can hear, and nobody knows what it is. Did you see the Blue McDonald's?
Yes, saw the Blue McDonald's.
The only Blue McDonald's in the world. Did you see the bear on the park bench?
Did not see the bear on the park bench, but saw the church, the beautiful church that's built. Oh my God! It's the whole thing. I have to say, I can't believe I've never been to these places. And it's mind-blowing, and it's really 6 hours away by car. I mean,
it's a short drive. You can do it by the time you get to lunch.
And it's just amazing that you can just walk around these places. It's a sort of audio-visual experience that is quite unlike anything else. It's not a Netflix show.
Did Elliot and Nolan were there, right?
Yes.
Did Elliot enjoy it all, or was it more of a Nolan trip?
Elliot did enjoy it. He loved running around in the Painted Desert. I mean, just loved it. Just because you could just run on these flat plains of sort of deserty thing, and if you took a photograph of the Painted Desert, it was so lurid. The colors were so intense. He just loved it. He loved that. He loved being outside and playing around.
I went with my mom about 15 years ago. We went to the Grand Canyon and then Sedona, and that whole just when you enter into Sedona, you just feel that calmness, don't you? You can feel just like the energy.
Supposedly a vortex there, right?
Yes, of energy vortex. Yeah,
you come down this hairpin road, and these massive structures just rise up. It's sort of. Have you been, Tom?
I have. I used to take an art class, and we took an artist retreat there. So we painted and drew and sat and looked. Yes. And just the red hills, the sand, around you, they are so full of character. I mean, your mind, when you look at clouds and you see things, everything in Sedona and that area makes your mind create, visions and ghosts and people and things. It's spirits. It's beautiful.
Yes. Really amazing. All right. Have you seen the new trailer for RuPaul's Drag Race Down Under?
I did. Saw it today.
It's out. It's out, and it's coming May the 1st. So May the 1st be with you. Okay, let's take a break. You got a question, Blake?
I do have a question. So she was poised to take over the world until she was murdered 2 weeks before her 24th birthday. And today she would have been 50 years old. Who is she?
Blimey.
What?
Another probing historical question from Blake. We'll have the answer right after the break here on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James St. James. And Blake, you had a question.
I did. So this lady was poised to take over the world until she was murdered 2 weeks before her 24th birthday in 1995.
1995. That rules out Cleopatra, doesn't it?
Yes. Today is her birthday and she would be 50. Who is it?
I'm always embarrassed about how little I know about world issues and world things. I believe she was a woman. I think she was a Harvard graduate, but she was a native of Pakistan.
No, not her.
India.
No.
Mary, Queen of Scots.
Pop star.
Selena
Aaliyah.
Selena Quintanilla.
When you said take over the world, I thought you meant take over the world.
Right.
Yeah, like literal.
Yes.
Well, that's Selena is beloved by so many. So,
And she would be 50 years old today.
Oh
Same
my
age
God,
as-
that's insane.
Same as J-Lo.
Wow.
J-Lo ain't 50 years old. She's 55 if she's a day.
That's right. Same as Madonna, in fact.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Angeline.
We are counting down the top 10 things this week that made us go wow, and we've reached number 7. Tom.
Number 7.
Award seasons come and go. I just want to state here and now that the best performance of the year has happened already. All the awards go to Bowen Yang for the Oscar, the Tony, the Emmy, for his portrayal of the iceberg that sunk the Titanic on Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live last weekend. If you haven't seen the sketch, I'm not going to recreate it for you. It is maddeningly funny. He talk about being organically gay. He personifies it's a he. He's queenie as can be. Never talks about being gay, but he is there, and it's so rich in so many ways. But it's a parody of people that go on TV, infamous for one thing, who want to downplay it and blame other people and are there to promote something else. He is there to really promote his hyper EDM new pop disco Fantasia album called Music. But Colin, what's his face, keeps asking him about that night and people dying in the water. And
the quote from it is, "They came to me and they hit me."
Yeah, you want to talk about it? We'll talk about it. Yes, they came to where I live and work and they hit me. It's so twisted.
Nobody blames the water.
Yes, he goes, the water, they drowned, didn't they? But at one point, he's like, I'm sorry that these 30 or 40 people died. He goes, 1,500, whatever. It was just genius. It's just very zeitgeist.
Which is my best feature.
Yes. It's so stupid.
Where do you think it came from? Like, what would trigger being the iceberg?
I wonder if he's been sitting on it for a while. Like, this is pretty evergreen. If there's nothing happening, we can use this.
It does sound like something that like the Groundlings or something would do. I feel, or it sounds like he was just sitting around like smoking pot with his friends. It was like, oh my God, I need to be the iceberg.
He's been a standout since he joined the show, but this week for some reason, and I love Saturday Night Live and rooted it last year, and I got to see it. But and they've been doing it during a pandemic. God bless them. But sometimes it can still feel a little formulaic. And while this fit into the formula, it was just a genius, bonkers, and super gay character on a show that hasn't always had that representation. So Bowen Yang, congratulations, the Oscar, the Tony, the Emmy, the Nobel Peace Prize.
It really caught fire. I mean, like, right? It's just everywhere. It's like, I haven't actually seen the sketch, but I've seen like stills, and I'm like, oh, I got to check that. It's got a viral thing happening.
It's just the joy that he had while he was doing it. And Colin, just clearly they were having so much fun. And you're right. Sometimes it feels formulaic. I always think that Weekend Update has like the freshest stuff on the show. Usually that's where everyone gets to be experimental and just play with characters.
I can't believe he's still just a featured player. You'd think after someone's become kind of a household name that they'd be like on
next season. I guarantee he's
I'm looking forward to Iceberg the movie.
Right, Lauren Michaels greenlight that.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna be on Peacock.
It's gonna be a musical too, right?
Yes.
All right, let's move on to number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6, I watched the 6-hour Ken Burns documentary on Hemingway on PBS. You did too. I'm glad because we have a lot to bounce off here. The thing about it's a very deep dive into a very complicated man. It goes all of his writing, his whole childhood, every women that he ever slept with, his depression, his mental health issues, his alcoholism, his suicide. I mean, we run the gamut of his life. Part 1 was my favorite because it's his youth, and he was such a handsome man.
Is
My
it 3?
God. What?
Is it 3 parts?
It's 3 parts, yes.
Yeah.
So the first part is he's a young man, and he's just, by God, the handsomest man on the planet. You understand why every woman was throwing himself at him. The other part about that is in his childhood, his mother was a wackadoo, and she took his sister and him and gave them both the same page boy haircut, and she would dress the sister up as a boy and him up as a girl. And she did that all through their childhood. And later on in other parts, you hear how he liked his women androgynous. And you have to think, like, is there a connection here? And he would sometimes, and one wife said that in bed, he would just stop and say, okay, now I'm the girl and my name is Patricia, and you're the boy and your name is Bob.
This is in the Ken Burns
in the documentary, yes. And they don't really say what happens to Patricia and Bob after that, who does what to who, but you've got to think that it all comes back to that wackadoodle mom. It's sort of weird. Part 2 is a little bit more of a literary circle jerk where everybody is oohing and ahhing over those short declarative sentences that he wrote that were so revolutionary. And you think that, yeah.
And I'll just say the way that this is a Ken Burns documentary, and as a Ken Burns documentary, it goes pretty fast. I have to say, it felt like it was very full, but just the way that they visualize those sentences
as he's writing them, yes,
it was quite. It was a masterpiece and bringing words to life. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, no, because at the time it was in the time of like Edith Wharton and Henry James and Thomas Hart and all these very verbose writers of the early 20th century and late 19th century, and he was just like this flash of lightning who came along, and it was all about being simple and short and it easy enough for a grade school reader to understand. I mean, it was all about that, and every writer since then owes their debt to Ernest Hemingway.
And yet how wildly artistic the combination of those sentences were. Like he wrote sentence by sentence. Like he spent like an hour on a sentence and then the next sentence, then the next sentence. But they'd be like 8-word sentences that when they all came together were this like poem almost. Anyway, keep going.
There's that famous, he wrote the one sentence story, and it was baby shoes for sale, never worn. And like the whole country like started crying because, like, she's selling her shoes because she had a stillborn child. And, he put so much into those 4 words, I mean, like, it's just, anyway, then part 3 is where everyone online started having a fit and coming for Ken Burns because it starts to seem like a hit job on him. Part 3 is all about his breaking down and his alcoholism and his mental health issues and depression, and he becomes more and more abusive to the women in his life and his kids. And the one kid you find out is a drag queen, and he's very horrible to that son and everything. But what they don't mention all through it, you hear about his concussions. He keeps getting concussions during bullfights and during the war, and this 20 concussions and all. Ken Burns never makes that causal connection that the concussions probably led to the depression and the paranoia and the mental health issues, but he never comes out and says that. Which
it's never declared, but they do mark every time he has a concussion. They talk about it. They do
mention it, but then they fail to pull it together at the end that this is the cause of everything. And the other thing that really pissed people off is you have all this stuff with him in Ketchum, Idaho, when he's living in Idaho, and he's getting paranoid and he thinks the FBI is watching him, and he's at a bar and he thinks the FBI is filming him, and he has to get dragged out of the bar and all this stuff. Well, Ken Burns never mentions the fact that the FBI were watching him, by God, and they had been watching him since he was in Cuba, when he was part of the Cuban Revolution. Since for the next 10 years, he was constantly under surveillance. His phones was under surveillance, and Ken never mentions that, and it just ends up making Ernest look like he's just this sort of wackadoodle, paranoid nut.
Didn't know that. I have a question. James, is the FBI watching you right now?
Well, there are some clicks on my phone that I think are very disturbing, but I'm not allowed to say it because I think they might be listening right now.
The elevator in your closet.
Living for the day when your brilliantly epigrammatic sentences are celebrated in a multi-part documentary by Ken Burns. I mean, I have to say, why Hemingway? That's the thing that sort of I guess is great. I see great affection from you two for Hemingway, but I just sort of think,
What? I mean, literally, he changed the way people write and think, and there is not one person after Hemingway.
What about Scott Fitzgerald? What about
Fitzgerald was that silly little playboy nitwit twat who just happened to stumble upon a couple parties that he was able to write about. But other than that, and that was all Zelda who wrote it, that he copied from Zelda. So what are you saying, Scott?
And they were all peers. That whole period in Hemingway's story, I just fell upon it, and I watched every single minute of it. It's really fascinating. Yeah. I didn't know the stuff you had mentioned, James, so thank you for that. But I think it's streaming on PBS if you want to catch up.
But and also, he was also one of those sort of like characters who lived, he with the bullfighting, and he was a larger than life character. He was always in the middle of every war that happened,
like Madonna.
I mean, what about D.H. Lawrence? I'm just not buying this idea that he's the sort of turning point of literature.
No, well, he is there because even his contemporaries were like James Joyce and Thomas Mann, who were doing these obscure things, and he was all about this lightning bolt of clarity, which was sort of it was from Gertrude Stein, who taught him that what Picasso and was doing, to art is what he needed to be doing with literature, and to be able to show every side of the sentence from, like the same way you see every side of the woman's face on a Picasso, at the same time. And
yes, I'm gonna say I called my brother and sister and said you need to watch this. It's compellingly done. I recommend it highly.
Yeah. I am gonna watch it. All right. Number five. Spent a lot of time in the car recently going on this road trip, and a lot of time in the car means it's books on tape. And Billy was listening to Life Isn't Everything, which is about Mike Nichols, the director. And it's a sort of oral history by 150 of his closest friends. And this was the first thing that got me. I mean, talk about oohing and ahhing. Who has 150 close friends to start with? But every single one of them is in this book, and every single one of them is mega massively famous. There are no ordinary people in Mike Nichols' life ever, period. Everyone he knew was famous, even down, of course, to his last wife, Diane Sawyer. But it's just every person of the 20th century, Meryl Streep, Harold Pinter, they're all there.
Elaine May, yes.
Elaine May just oohing and ahhing over Mike Nichols.
Nora Ephron.
Yes, I mean, just you name it. Billy Crystal,
Jane Fonda, Robert Redford, all of those, all of the stars.
Lisa Left Eye Lopez.
Yes, Britney Spears. And they're just going, Mike
Lillian Gish.
Colton Underwood,
Gus Kenworthy,
and they were like, "He's so talented." And of course, I didn't realize, well, because his first film was "Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf" with Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. So I think it's kind of a nasty film, but okay. Then of course,
that's violence. I will fight you on that.
Okay, well, because we have Hemingway and now this, and then of course he did The Graduate, which was sort of. Who called it? Someone called it. I think it was Tom Hanks said it was Citizen Kane of the disaffected generation or something.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Catch-22, Annie, Spamalot, Carnal Knowledge, Silkwood, Working Girl, Birdcage, Postcards from the Edge, Angels in America. In fact, that was a seminal point for HBO, I believe, right? Mike Nichols, the great theater director and the great movie director, and he was both equally, went and worked for HBO at a time when you didn't do that sort of thing. You didn't, it was television.
He also collaborated with Whoopi Goldberg at the very beginning of her career and
kind of discovered her, right? He kind of, Dustin Hoffman, Meryl Streep, Natalie Portman. It's like,
wait, were there
Richard Avedon? He was friends with Richard Avedon. It's like there's no one he wasn't friends with who wasn't famous. I felt exhausted listening to it. And then I got sort of cross. I was like, why do famous people only know each other? What is wrong with them that they don't have any interest? And they almost is like they live like hothouse plants in a sort of celebrity greenhouse just to tell little bon mots about each other. I realized this wasn't the best part of me coming out. I was just a little bitter.
James has the answer.
To be fair, I have a feeling that is the mythology that happens after you die, or the mythology that happens after 20 years. And I have another feeling that if they were to do in 25 years after you die, they would do the World of Wonder story, that they are going to do nothing but Monica Lewinsky and Macaulay Culkin and stuff. And it's going to look like you do nothing but hang out with Gus Kensworthy and Ronan Farrow and blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, that's your whole life. And
Colton Underwood.
They're going to ignore the fact that it's, like, some of the lesser people, they go, your biographers tend to put in only bold-faced names.
What's your perspective, Tom?
Just Mike Nichols is a unique character of the 20th century and has collaborated with some of the best talent. I mean, it's the golden age of theater, and it's an interesting time in theater. And he was at the apex. He was one of the golden boys and makers of it. There's Neil Simon. There's so many. And I also feel like New York at one time was that burg, you know what I'm saying?
Probably everybody knew everybody.
Yeah, like Fran Legret says, everybody knew each other, right?
Yeah.
There was just a few people in a room.
I still remember that a little bit from the 80s when everybody was mixing more than they do now.
Yeah, that's true. But we all hated each other, really, even though we pretended to like each other, right?
Still do.
Same today. That's right.
Elaine May, who was his sort of partner in crime early on, she actually said that I love this quote. She said, "He knows you can't really be liked or loved if you're perfect. You have to have just enough flaws." And he does. Just the right, perfect flaws to be absolutely endearing. So even his flaws are like praise. I was just like, I can't listen to this anymore.
Well, that's what Truman Capote said about Babe Paley. He said she was perfect. Her only flaw was that she was perfect, or something like that. I can't, Yeah.
We had I'm not going to say the name and I won't reveal it, but we had a video conference with a world famous A-list actress today who just happened in talking to us about her life said, Mike Nichols once said to me when he was directing me in something, he said, "When in doubt as an actor, get lost in each other's eyes." And it was about a point about masks and that you have. She goes, "I realized in the COVID time that you have to see the whole face actually, but so pulling down masks, but he said things that affected people, that stick with them, that guided them, and that's amazing.
Absolutely right. I so wanted to go off on a tangent on that in that meeting because it was a meeting of delightful, hilarious tangents. But he also said, in terms of giving guidance to actors about how to do a scene, he just said, "Bring your day." He's like, "Don't act it, just be it. Sort of just bring your day. Don't try to perform it." And sometimes when an actor would do a really good performance, he'd say, "Okay, that was great. Now just do it again as you." He was very sort of
well, were there any
I couldn't, the way actors love to talk about acting and how they dig deep, and it was like, for God's sakes.
It is a craft. It is a craft.
I hate actors. I went to acting school at NYU, and after 6 months, I said, "I hate all of you. I can't be around this anymore." But were there any scandals with him? Was there anybody did he ever do anything wrong, or was his whole life just perfect?
No, he managed to deal with Liz Taylor and Richard Burton, who were but sort of together impossible actors on a set.
Drunken tornadoes.
He subdued them, and if someone was an asshole, he dealt with them. And he dealt with was it Michelle Pfeiffer in Working Girl?
Melanie
Griffith.
See, I'm just so terrible. I not only do I resent celebrities, I don't even know their names.
That was a movie. That was a pivotal movie for her, and she was in the hands of Mike Nichols. I mean, it does.
But she was also very difficult, apparently, and he really, dealt with her. He just sounds absolutely idyllic and lovely and talented, and probably was. And rest in perfection, Mike Nichols. Okay, let's take a break. Drag Race España is coming. I have to tell you. Well, I can't tell you how soon it's coming. It's coming soon.
And you can get your first look at the set and the judges on set on the Wow Report.
Nice.
Marvelous. Thank you, Blake. Do you
Well,
have a
I have a question. I had another question, but I'm throwing it out.
Wow.
This may be easy, but what do Hemingway and Roseanne Barr have in common?
They both married Tom Arnold. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's right.
Close.
Hemingway and Roseanne Barr.
We'll
Okay.
have the answer for you right after the break on the Wow Report here on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James St. James and Blake. What was the question?
James talked about Hemingway, which is streaming on PBS. I asked, what do Hemingway and Roseanne Barr have in common?
Wait, they both like loose meat sandwiches.
Who doesn't?
I think it has something to do with Idaho.
What'd you call me?
Idaho.
Fenton?
No, I just need to know what a loose meat sandwich is. What is that?
Roseanne Barr opened a loose meat sandwich. It's a really big deal in Iowa. That's what everybody eats there. It's like
Illinois.
it-
Lanford, Illinois. Get it right.
well, she's from Iowa.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well, anyway, Hemingway's granddaughter smooched Roseanne on the Big Lesbian Kiss.
Yes,
Mariel
Mariel
Hemingway.
Hemingway.
Oh,
So gorgeous, yes.
small world, eh?
Number 4.
I just want to give a little bit of love to the end of season 13 of RuPaul's Drag Race.
It really came because I don't know if you've been noticing, but it's been going on for about 47 episodes.
It is the grand finale we've been waiting and waiting and
It
waiting.
is the longest
waiting
season
for.
in history, right? It is the longest
It
season.
did do, I think, the most episodes. But you know, and people love.
Hold on. Can we just address that really quickly? Because the rumor online is that you got paid extra for episodes, and that's why you kept stretching it out because you got more millions of dollars. You, Tom, personally.
I personally, yes, I have all the millions of dollars in a tin in the freezer of my house just in case anyone's looking. No, I mean, we did get a large order because the show's successful. We have a grand finale coming up. Oh, if you're listening to this in time, on April 23rd is the grand finale. Last year we had to do a remote because of the COVID of it all. This year we're not back to normal, but we're back to sickening. I still on the line from the script. And we brought back the 4 finalists, and they perform everything on an amazing stage without an audience. We have a remote audience, kind of like a drive-in audience. So that's great. And the week before tonight, if you're listening on Friday, there is the Drag Race Reunited. And we're doing it differently this year. We're doing it kind of inspired by last year's finale. Each of the 9 eliminated queens are doing their own, picked a song or wrote a song and are doing their own homemade music video, which is such a great, fun way. It worked out so great last year and it worked out great this year. It's just a window into their weird, wacky souls, whether they're dance videos or high concept.
I really enjoyed that last year when they were in their apartments making their own videos. I thought that was really fun.
And there was also a feeling, not just because of this year, but, social media can go so hard and so deep and so unrelentless that we think here, and I know this is controversial because, Andy Cohen kind of invented the housewife reunion that we've all been modeling. But I think in the Drag Race world, we're beyond that. We're post-reunion. Like, why bring up all the controversies that are spouted online and misrepresented? Why underline people's frailties or mistakes or they're under pressure, their cameras are on them, the good, the bad, the ugly is going to show. And we are doing our extra special best with both the reunion and next week's grand finale to celebrate our queens and all they do.
I do think it's interesting that this year, the 4 last contestants, they're all spectacular. They're all so wonderful and lovable and amazing. And I think that I haven't seen as much of the vitriol and the a lot of that, because everybody's just like any one of them could win, and we're sort of fine with that. And that's how I feel. I don't have a clear favorite.
Gottmik, Candy Muse, Rose, and Simone. 4 incredible.
Each one of them could bring something to the crown that we haven't had before, and each one of them is so lovable.
And as much as people complain about the long season, we've also had the luxury of getting to know these queens and fall in love with them. And it's
ding, ding, ding. Yeah, I think it helped.
Yeah. Okay.
And you had the pork chop loading dock, which I hope will be repeated.
There might be a pork chop cameo. I'm not saying.
All right, so let's move on to that's RuPaul's Drag Race Reunited. The reunion airs tonight, okay? 7 Central on VH1 in the US, and of course on Wow Presents Plus, excluding US, UK, Canada, and Down Under, but in all other territories of the world. So $3.99, price of a latte, less, you get so much more. That's the condensed version of the plug.
And that's the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Just a few words here and there. Let's move on to number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3, this is going to be short because I'm still triggered by it. It's this new sitcom on TBS called Chad that stars SNL alumna Nasim Pedrad, okay? And Nasim Pedrad, gorgeous, fabulous, 30-something-year-old woman who plays a 14-year-old Iranian-American boy who is this nerdy little boy who wants to be one of the cool kids. And it is called a cringe comedy, sort of in the vein of like Pen 15, which we talked about, which is sort of the same thing with adults playing kids. But this is so upsetting to watch, and the cringe is just, he is so upsetting, and it's just, she milks every awkward moment of this pubescent boy's life, and I could get through 1.5 episodes. I had to turn it off halfway because I was like, "Stop it! I can't! No!" And it's not because I was like relating. It's just she does such an amazing job of creating this nerdy little awful character that you want to throttle, but you also want to just hug and say, "Stop trying so hard."
Wow. It struck a chord with you, James.
What?
It struck a chord with you.
It did. Like cringe comedy is hard to do anyway because it's so awkward. They say that Veep was like one of the first of the big cringe comedies, and I
always thought the comeback, the Valerie, that was a cringe comedy, which I had trouble with.
I would have to pause, come back, and be like, I don't know, and then you'd go back, you'd be like, do a little bit more. That sort of, but this takes this to that whole new level. It is really upsetting.
Well, that's Chad on Tuesdays, 10:30 p.m. on TBS. Number 2. Driving in the car across the Badlands, and what do we hear but Taylor Swift? And I think I've heard this record before, but it sounds just a little bit different, but it's sort of uncanny valley. Anyway, it's Taylor Swift has gone and recorded her first album. I mean, she has what? Does she ever sleep during this pandemic? She's released 2 albums, and now she's re-recorded her first album. And I mean, I know some of the first album, I don't know it that well, but it's such an interesting story because she was very, very cross when her masters was sold to
Scooter Braun,
something like $300
million
million
of the 21st century.
And then there's an interesting twist of the story. It was, let me see. That's it. It was Kelly Clarkson who tweeted back in 2009, just a thought, you should go and re-record all the songs that you don't own the masters on, exactly how you did them, but put brand new art and some kind of incentive so fans will no longer buy the old versions. I'd buy all of the old versions, just new versions, just to prove a point. That was in 2019. And that's what Taylor's gone and done. And she's going to re-record every single one of the 6 albums that she no longer controls.
This is something that artists have done because, when we look for lip sync tracks, we'll sometimes be offered because the artists want it because they make money on the re-records. They don't make on things they don't have control of. But I have to say, some come close, but none of the remakes are ever as good as the originals. Tell me the truth. I know there's an army of Taylor Swift fans, none of whom watch our show or listen. But what were they as good, or are you not the person to make that call?
I'm not the person to make that.
Oh, I can tell you that Love Song, it's hard to tell the difference. I mean, her voice is slightly lower than it was before, but the orchestration and everything is really top of the line. It's fantastic.
Well, I just want to say, I think JoJo was the first to do, or the first I heard of to do this, because like her first hits, the big hits, she doesn't make any money from because Dr. Luke wrote them or something. Something like that.
Yeah. But you know, it works for her because it debuted at #1, didn't it? The album and all the singles. So she's making millions and millions and millions of dollars.
And the great clever twist is that she put on like an extra 6 tracks that were going to originally be on that original album, but didn't make it. And now she's adding them. So now you have, if you're a fan, you've got a reason to go buy the original album again.
Can I just say, thank God things are finally looking up for Taylor Swift.
That poor dear has had nothing but misery the last 15 years.
The biggest success in the world.
I love her quote, though. She said, "Thankfully, I left my past in Scott's hand, but not my future."
Right. Yes.
All right.
But the coda to this is that Scooter Braun just sold all his holdings to the like a Korean company for something like $300 billion.
It'd be even better if he had sold it all to Kelly Clarkson. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, he sold it for $300 million, but of course, I just think they must be really
the difference between million and billion.
But I know, but the people who bought it, I think, must be really upset because all those. Synchronization. I mean, unless they undercut Taylor and offer the originals cheaper than, I don't know. But
if a flashback really quickly, remember how furious Paul McCartney was when Michael Jackson bought all the Beatles albums? Yeah, it's the tale as old as time.
All right, we'll take one more quick break, and then when we come back, we'll reveal the #1 thing this week that made us go.
It's a biggie.
Wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James St. James and Tom and Blake. We've reached #1.
#1.
If you had given us time during the commercial, Fenton, we should have all changed into black with hats and veils because we are mourning the closing of the Arclight Theater, specifically in Hollywood location, the Cinerama Dome. It was kind of, I believe, the first of its kind in LA and in the world where you could reserve your seats, which happens everywhere, but you could reserve your seats. And how many hours have we all spent? It's very LA to drive a car that you can't afford and to buy like $18 tickets to see a movie and spend $15 on caramel corn and see celebrities and your best friends and everybody pouring into the Arclight.
Well, it also, it's also was this at the theater. It doesn't have trailers. It only has 3 trailers and no commercials, and that was one of the big draws about it. But I gotta say that yesterday when the news broke, this week when the news broke, Deadline and Hollywood Reporter and Variety all sort of did it at the same time, and the way Twitter exploded and people, I got tears in my eyes the minute I heard it, and you can't help but think of all the times that you've been there. And it's not just Cinerama Dome and the Arclight. Pacific theaters are closing too, and that's the Grove. And I spend every weekend going to the Grove and going to movies with my sister before the pandemic.
It's really the anchor of the Grove, actually. Someone was saying, you all go to the Grove to watch a movie and then you'll eat or shop or whatever. But if you don't have that anchor of going to the Grove for a movie,
and we've lost Regency cinemas. I mean, it's sad to think that this might be the end of actual cinemas.
I heard a conspiracy theory that's all a ploy to get concessions from the landlord so they can negotiate a cheaper rent, which they desperately need, to continue in business. But
I've also heard that Netflix was going to swoop in because their theater's right next door. And I mean, their offices are right next door, and they were going to try and use it. I also heard
if we do recover from this pandemic, as we recover from this pandemic, let's be positive, we will be going back to the theater, and it maybe is a business ploy. But I do, going back to our emotional reaction, I always, for me, and being an LA guy and a gay guy and a single guy, like certain restaurants, and now I realize the Arclight are like churches to me.
Yeah.
It's where you gather. It's where you see each other on Friday nights. It's where the community comes. It's where you took first dates. It's where you would go, to go to celebrate someone's birthday. It's just, it's really funny.
I had one of my sweetest dates ever at the Arclight. I will never. It was just I get choked up thinking about it. I remember seeing some of the celebrities there. I remember seeing Bette Midler one time and Tony Basil walking in, and they were both like 4 feet tall and holding on to each other like little old ladies. And it was just the cutest thing I'd ever seen. I remember seeing Josh Hutcherson there every weekend. He was always there.
I watched Jennifer's Body with Katy Perry right when she was like coming up.
Right. I remember seeing, gosh, I've just seen so many stars there over the years, and you always, and you can't be starstruck because it's Hollywood. And so everyone just sort of sits we all sat next to Robert Downey Jr. when we went to go see Freak Show. Remember he was there? Yeah. Just
one of the punters.
I've sat next to Jennifer Coolidge in a movie screening there too before.
Just fabulous.
Though, there is this trend where you can rent out the whole theater for you and 20 of your socially distanced friends for like a couple of $100. I mean,
I don't believe in that.
No, because our agent, Jonathan Swaden, accidentally texted me saying, let's go. And he wasn't inviting me. I was like, well, let's go where? What? And he's like, oh, I didn't mean you.
But anyway, that sounds like an amazing birthday party that you or Randy would throw that we get invited to. So I'm holding on. I'm waiting for you guys to invite us.
You get invited too. I don't get invited to those anymore.
We haven't had a party. James, we haven't had a party in years. Well, that's all we got time for today. We've exhausted ourselves. Thanks for tuning into the Wow Report. What, Tom? Yeah.
No, we're just sad about the Arclight. Being melancholy.
I had tears. I really got very upset about it. And so many people, so many stars. I kept seeing like Elijah Wood and everybody kept saying like that, Quentin Tarantino, buy this, or
wasn't there that story about Faye Dunaway always going and treating it as like her office?
Well, she used to go and she would never pay, and she'd say, "I have an Oscar," and she'd just walk right in.
And she set up her newspapers all around her and like take calls.
Now is the time for me to tell my Faye Dunaway through the stapler at my head story.
Yes, we can always add it to the end of the YouTube show.
Yeah, this is for the YouTube. When I was working at Bookstoop, and she was there, and she was asking about a book, and I couldn't find it, and she grabbed the stapler, and she threw it, and it hit me in the head, and I was bleeding, gushing blood.
And I feel as a documentarian of your life, James, I need to tie together to people your strange behavior now and the head injury you received from Faye Dunaway at Bookstoop.
Thank you, Tom Burns.
And in the book that celebrates your life, Tom Hanks will recite this story. I was there in Book Soup when Faye Dunaway. What did you do when that happened?
I think because I had made this whole big thing about how when Faye Dunaway walked in and everyone said, "I'm not dealing with her. I'm not doing." And I was like, "Oh, I will, Faye. Oh, Miss Dunaway. Oh, Miss Dunaway. How can I help you?" And she wanted me to look for this Spanish author, and I think I mispronounced his name, and she called me an idiot, and that's when I realized.
But I have to say, politically incorrect as I am, today, as a young person, you could sue her.
Oh, yeah, true.
And now you just have a great story and a concussion that's changed your personality. But so what?
And maybe it's not too late to sue anyway. Maybe you should go.
What is the statute of limitations
on a stapler offense?
Stapler assaults.
All right, James, thank you for being the staple of our show, and and you, Tom, too, and Blake. And thanks for tuning in to listen to the Wow Report. You can catch previous episodes on the Sirius Radio app or you can watch them on our YouTube channel, Wow Presents, which is absolutely free. Unlike our channel, Wow Presents Plus, but it's only $3.99 a month.
What's that? It's nothing.
What's
I
that?
know,
What
I
is
know.
that?
And the
It's
price is
a
going up soon.
latte.
I've been reliably informed. So.
Price is going up.
All right, same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go wow.
Now, also for our viewers on YouTube, Tom, very quickly, name 6 Liza Minnelli movies other than Cabaret.
Lucky Lady with Burt Reynolds. Arthur. Sterile Cuckoo.
Yes.
Stepping Out.
Yes.
New York.
Yes.
And Sterile Cuckoo, 72, 73, 74.
Do you know what, Jazz?
No.
No. She did do I'm Sex in the City 2.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
And she was also in Rent-A-Cop with Burt Reynolds as well.
That's good.
Yes.
I did pretty good. 6 is hard. I got 5.
No, you did very good. Very good. Yes.
I hear you. No, I totally hear you. Trust me, it's awful. But when we do, I'm so old that when contestants do or on audition tapes, over drag queens do Liza Minnelli, I'm like, you're doing an impersonation of Liza. You're not. That's not what Liza would say. You know, it's like, but that's the beauty of being our age. What a wonderful life. It's a wonderful life.
We are petrified. That's what we are.
Petrified. I do just want to go back with Gus Kenworthy again. Is that not Gus Kenworthy, but Colton Underwood, and they were saying Billy Eichner was tweeting that that Colton Underwood was going to get a GLAAD award before he does, and then someone else said that Colton Underwood is going to be hosting before he gets his invitation to all this sort of
it's a weird accelerated.
Did you see the Twitter thing that said he'd sooner be Underwood than on top of a bachelorette?
Underwood on top of wood, as long as wood's involved.
And yes, I forget what.
You know what? You know what I did yesterday? I don't know if you were paying attention to my Instagram and Twitter. Were you all?
I was. I apologize.
I went to a restaurant.
Oh yes, I did see that.
Yes. My first time in 14 months out of my apartment.
How was Arby's?
No, I went to the Sunset Tower, and
you were in my neighborhood.
Yes, I was. Yes, and I was shaking as I went in, and my teeth were chattering a little bit. I mean, it was cold outside, and it was outdoors, but it was still a very weird experience.
I have reservations tomorrow at Gracias Madre, my first restaurant, because my friend Elena, who's vaccinated, is visiting, and her daughter's here. So, but yeah, I am looking forward to it, and I'm petrified.
Exactly. I mean, there was no way I could get out of this, so I had to do it. But at the same time, for the whole week before, I was literally dreading it. Hi, Elliot.
Hi, Elliot.
Hi, Elliot.
Are you glad you went? Are you glad you went now that you've been?
I am. I ended. We were there for 2.5 hours. We just chalked for 2.5 hours.
And were you mask free the entire time? Outdoors?
Yes. No, I wasn't. It was indoor, but that you know how it is. Yeah, I've been with you there.
The doors are open, so you're getting lots of,
I remember
should I wear a mask and take it off in between? I don't know. I'll probably just. I mean, I've had vaccine. I mean, I'm halfway there.
I got there before she did, and she texted me and she said, "Get a drink, and I'll be there in about like 10 minutes." And I got the drink, and I would lift the mask up and take it, and put it back down, and then do that over it. But then after,
that's what you do on the plane. Is you like rip off your mask, you go.
Which is probably incredibly ineffective.
It's going to get you in that millisecond. It doesn't matter if you know.
Right. I just cannot get over the fact that the amount of coronavirus in the world would fit into a Coca-Cola can.
Yeah.
That's the tininess of the enemy we're dealing with.
Have you heard the reports that getting it from surfaces is probably so negligible? Like all of the wiping down and the cleaning we've done. It's more about shaking hands and breathing in the air. But
It's
whatever.
a good thing because I hadn't cleaned my house in about 4 years prior to the coronavirus, and then I managed to get up and do a little cleaning. So
Yes, you were looking for. Should I clean my apartment? God, give me a sign.
And then 500,000 people later, I'm like, okay.
I love the way they call it. What do they call it? They call it health theater, or is it safety theater? Like performative things. Like
yes,
like
I'm part of the good.
services.
It's very Protestant ethic. You're supposed to look like you're going to heaven, even though it's been predetermined.
All the world is a stage.
There we go.
All right, I gotta go. I love you all.
Bye.